All right, let me ask you something. When was the last time you launched a fresh batch of ad creative for your Meta or TikTok campaigns? If you have to think about it, that is the problem. And here's what I see over and over again with Shopify brands. A founder or, a media buyer, they find one or two kind of winning ads and they kind of ride those ads out until the performance kind of falls off the cliff. And then it's a scramble, a mad scramble, I might add. Suddenly you're trying to find like new creative. You have to find new creators. You have to negotiate usage rights. Got to wait a few weeks for delivery. And the whole time while you're waiting for this new creative, your CPAs are climbing. So the issue really isn't targeting. It's not your offer. It's really that you just ran out of creative and, you don't really have a system to replace it. And I think that's where Incense comes in. On full disclosure, I actually wrote a very comprehensive review of their platform over at ecommercefastlane.com because I think what they've built really matters for Shopify brands at the kind of growth stage and beyond. Now, Incense is a UGC and a creator marketing platform. It really does give you access to over 20,000 vetted creators across more than 35 countries. So you can launch kind of structured briefs using their templates, and you can chat directly with creators inside the platform. And every piece of content that you approve, it also comes with lifetime usage rights. Now, that last part's really huge, actually, now that I think about it. There's no more chasing permissions 6 months later when you want to reuse a top performer. And I believe really what sets apart this platform from other UGC platforms is just how much it covers under one roof. Like you don't just get raw video clips. You can run UGC campaigns. You can do product seeding. You can do Meta partnership ads and TikTok Spark ads. You can even do, this is new, but you can even do TikTok shop and affiliate programs all from within one workflow. And if you're at a stage where you don't really have the bandwidth to manage these creator relationships yourself, they even have a kind of a white glove, fully managed service where their team handles all of it end to end. So if you're a Shopify store and you're doing, $50K or more per month and you're spending a lot of money on paid social, the question really isn't whether, you need a steady pipeline of UGC, because we know you do. The question is whether are you going to continue cobbling together to make all of this work manually, or are you actually going to build a system? And I think that's the benefits of Incense. So you can check out Incense. They're spelled INSENSE.pro, incense.pro, or you can hit the link in the show notes and that'll redirect you over. I would honestly go and book a free demo. Just take a look and see what their platform is. I know it'll help your brand. So let's now jump into today's episode.
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Welcome to E-commerce Fastlane. I am your host, Steve Hutt. Now, today's conversation is all about what happens after the click. A lot of times we talk about kind of leading up to it. I'm talking about what happens after the click, because most Shopify brands right now, they know it matters, but they haven't actually built a proper retention system in their business. They're more top of funnel, kind of like, net new customers, and they're kind of push for that. But we know, I had a previous conversation with another team member in this org, and we're talking about that. And it's such an interesting topic. I'm going to link to both episodes together in this episode. But what's interesting is that the number one thing that caught my attention about this recording today is that the industry median for email revenue per recipient right now, from what I understand, is only 8 cents. So it's absolutely insane. Where one brand that this company has worked with right now, they're now hitting 40 cents of revenue per active subscriber. And like it's the same list, but it's 5 times the output. Like the difference wasn't just sending more emails, it was the structure. And I think that's what I'm going to talk about today. My guest is Chris Dyer, and he's the CEO of a company called Webtopia. That's Chris right there. But he's the founder of a newly acquired company, they're kind of amalgamating it together under the one umbrella, but it's called Oak Email Studio. They are a boutique retention agency, and they have built some interesting kind of life cycle kind of systems around Klaviyo for these scaling kind of D2C brands. There is a very unique ICP. There's an ideal customer profile for their agency and kind of how they work, just having enough data and be able to be impactful and, and the intentionality about the work they do. But it's very interesting with this acquisition through their parent company, which is Webtopia, who I just recorded with. It's very interesting. It's all now under one roof. So now they really are end to end. They actually do everything. They walk the walk, talk the talk. So that's my intro. Welcome, Tris, to the show.
Thanks very much, Steve. Yeah, it's great to be here. And yeah, absolutely. This is a very exciting kind of moment for us, I suppose. We're kind of introducing people to the world and what we're doing. So, just a bit of a backstory on me. Years ago, I worked in large agencies. I work with large businesses, and I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of, bad spending. I've seen a lot of bad strategies. I've even seen a lot of good strategies. So what I did was we broke out, myself and Ben, who you just talked to, and we set up Webtopia. We actually set up Dyer Digital, which we then later acquired with Webtopia. What we started to go after is a lot more acquisition, and that was going really, really well. We're working with a lot of brands. They were growing super fast, but one of the major problems we were facing the whole way through was actually that we were bringing the customers in, but they weren't retaining it. So we found that our CAC goals, our customer acquisition cost goals, were rising over and over. We're like, why? And they're like, we can't make profit off these customers. And we're like, no, you're doing it wrong. We're getting them in. We're bringing people in for the right reasons and everything else. And we're like, you know what? We'll help you with that too. So what we did is instead of starting a kind of a division within Webtopia, we said, you know what? We're going to specialize and be super clear on what we're doing here. And that's why we went out and we acquired Oaks from a lovely lady called Molly Nutt. But one of the things that we found within Oaks when we acquired it was people who were super passionate about telling stories based on data. Not just going and saying, here's some lovely art that we can send to our customers. It was people who are really focused on the data and focused on actually building customer lifetime value for our clients. So that's something that we've seen really, really work well. It's been just over a year now, and it's super exciting to see just how many people we're helping. We've had a lot of people moving over from Webtopia, but we've seen a lot of growth because there's been, word travels fast when you're doing some good work.
Absolutely. One thing I noticed kind of doing some pre-research kind of before recording, and you kind of describe retention more as a financial discipline and not necessarily a creative channel. So what does that actually mean in practice? Like, what are you measuring that maybe most email and SMS agencies aren't managing or monitoring correctly?
Absolutely. Yeah, great question. I think one of the things that we're really looking at is actually, as I say, customer lifetime value, but it's revenue per recipient per received email. So it's not just sending these people over and over and over emails again. It's actually looking at that in detail and understanding how we're actually getting in there. Some people are touching on the surface of this when it comes to SMS. They're going, okay, we can't send too many SMSs because we're going to piss these people off. But one thing we do is we look at it from an email standpoint and go, how are we segmenting properly to be able to create a journey for these people and actually explain to them and help them understand? More and more these days, AI is getting involved to make things a lot more relevant for people. And that's really kind of accelerating what we're doing, because realistically, if you're not relevant to people on an ongoing basis, you're just going to be brushed aside. There's so much content. Look, I'm based in Ireland, right? We don't have a huge amount of advertising coming our way. But when I spend time in the States, I just have to go into a dark room for a while because it's just at you all the time. So that just shows that if people are feeling like that, you have to be relevant. If you're not relevant, you're not going to be seen. And people aren't going to pay attention to what you're saying. So that's how we treat things differently. We treat people like humans. We're talking to humans on the other side of this email rather than this segment or that group of people. It's humans we're talking to.
Yeah. What's interesting too is that, there a lot of brands right now are, running ads, and then they have email kind of like as a separate function. And a lot of times they might outsource some of that to an agency potentially, or they're two different teams from within the same organization, let's say, but they're barely talking to each other. And so what's your thought on that? Because I guess my original thought is that unifying both acquisition and retention together seems to make a lot of sense. Just a lot of people just aren't doing it effectively or at all.
Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest kind of wins that we're finding at the moment is the fact that we're under one roof, that we talk in the same way, we have the same culture internally. It means that we can actually really start to put out good content for our customers, as we're seeing from when we have a sale going on all the way through to the email that we're going to be sending out, who we're sending it to, how we're describing it, all of the way across the board. So it's having a head of growth across the two agencies as well. One of the biggest things that we've seen, one of the biggest kind of wins that we've seen actually is where we inform the creative, the ad creative, based on both the open and click-through rate that we're seeing in our emails. Because actually, as we start to see more performance in the emails of the people who are coming through, the new people are coming through, that then informs new creative angles that we're going to put into our social ads as well. So that's been a real win for some of our brands, that we've been able to kind of bring that full cycle in terms of actually the business intelligence across the board, because it's really, really important to understand you're not just paying to send emails, you're not just paying to run ads. They have to intertwine. They have to be, as I said, has to be a customer journey the whole way through. We work with customers who are making kind of between 2 to 15 to maybe even 30 million a year. And one of the biggest things that we've seen in the step up from 2 to 30 has going from sending out standard emails, here you go, they're focused on trying to get emails out the door. And what we're actually seeing is we're going, okay, let's plan a month in advance. Let's go, here's your content calendar for this group of people and your content calendar for this group of people, because they're not the same. Your entire list of 180,000 people are not the same person. There are different groups of people that have subscribed for different reasons.
Yeah. You know what it is? Yeah, I just wrote it down here. It makes me laugh when I even have this, but like this whole pray and spray situation, because I think unfortunately, as a lot of people are still doing that. And, I'd argue that the problem with that, and I'm sure you see this, is all about list hygiene and deliverability and stuff. Hopefully I'm not opening up a can of worms by even mentioning that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts around that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the one of the things that I'd say that any brand that comes into us, obviously we do a lot of kind of deep dive into the deliverability that they have, right? Some people say like, I have a great deliverability and you've got, 60% open rates, but they forget that Apple Mail has already auto marks your stuff as open. So it's like, hang on,
Yeah.
looking at open
Pre-opened.
rates, like 2002, let's look on from that. One of the things that I would say is, from a deliverability standpoint, it's more engagement rate. You want to see how much what's your revenue per recipient, what's your click-through rate, all the stuff that actually happens and it takes a human action to do. And so I would say even looking at, conversion rate off the back of an email, it kind of is an indicator of good list health. Now, one thing I will say, and just talking about kind of, how you mentioned earlier on how they would have an agency dependent on that, that speaks to kind of teams at this growth level are really underutilizing the agency, but they're under-resourced internally for the complexity that's required. So if it be it like a creative person, a data analyst, be it somebody who's actually organizing it all, there's a lot more to just setting up an email and sending it out. There's a lot more to it. And I suppose the experience, and this is something that someone said to me the other day, your team really care. They give a shit. And that's the difference, because I found a lot now, more and more these days, and my wife's a HR director, and she's saying the same. People seem to want to work less. They want to get the thing done and get out the door, go to the bar, go to the beach, whatever. And look, when you bring someone in and they're really good, and there's that one person you have a single point of failure. Whereas if you have an agency that's there, you can have, if someone goes on holiday, it's covered. If somebody gets sick, it's covered. And so that's not just pumping up agencies. That has to be a good agency that can actually control this. So that's something that we've seen a massive kind of turn on for our clients that has really, really worked well over the last kind of 6 months.
So as far as like other than segmentation, because you're talking about like the customer journey, and I think we kind of talked offline before recording, we talked about this RFM, this recency frequency monetization, and this active, at-risk, and churn. Everyone has their different kind of like labels to these real humans that are part of the data set for a business. But so other than segmentation and knowing how to, and I guess orchestrating the right email at the right time to the right customer, like trying to get this is the retention play here. If they bought product A and you're trying to get them email out to recommend them product B, because statistically you can, with data, can prove the fact that people that buy A also buy beef and within this period statistically relevant, and knowing that obviously you need to kind of send out, or even subscription people. I talked to your brother about this, and what's interesting is that even the subscription businesses understanding flavor fatigue or other different things and giving people some options and knowing when it's time to renew, or and giving people some options and thinking about it to avoid the churn. And so what's your thought about that outside of segmentation? Is there anything else that happens with that list to maximize its, as you call it, this revenue per customer is significantly higher than the regular that most people are getting? So.
Yeah, and go back to what we were saying before. It's the messaging, right? And it's that, you can segment people out. You can make sure that they're sending to the right people, but the message has to make sense. It has to be clear, has to be open, and people have to be able to resonate with it. And this is where your information from your ads can come into your email marketing, because you get one shot to send this email to these people, but you can test these ads with multiple different people. So what I would say is like building that journey, especially you mentioned about flavor fatigue and things like that. That's something that we've tested actually with some of our partners that in social and brought that content across into email. And it's worked super well because we've seen our engagement rates massively increase by actually bringing that messaging in. And I mentioned AI earlier on as well, but one of the things that have to be super clear is Gmail have obviously got an AI scanner in there now. And I don't know, for many of your listeners who have iPhones, that when you open up in the morning, it's got all the Apple Intelligence is now starting to segment out a lot of the content. So if you don't have good, clear, concise content at the start of your email, that's going to just be brushed aside. So what I would say is how do we do it? We make sure we have clear, concise messaging, but also then relevant messaging to the people that we're segmenting to. So I think it's important to kind of say that is that like, if you're in a range where you're trying to scale your life cycle marketing, I think that's going to be where you need to start first. And, the execution is one thing, but take a step back and look at the strategy. What's your life cycle strategy? What are you actually trying to do with this? Which type and cohort of customers are you trying to scale? And using tools, there's many tools out there. Lifetimely is one, for example, where you can actually plug that into the back of your Shopify and it'll tell you that journey that people are going on. That's one that we've used super well to be able to bring that up people on that journey so that we can design flows very simply for people who have bought this, will go on to the next thing and go on to the next thing. So it's a super tool to be able to do that. But yeah, so to answer your question, I suppose, how do we do it? Creative messaging is very important. Very, very important.
Yeah. It's all about brand. It's the thing, like, people buy from people and if they resonate with the brand, I don't know if you brought it up or your brother brought it up, but it's just so interesting where people are willing to pay a little bit more for the brand. It's not necessarily the product, I have, a certain brand of pants. I love Viore. I think they're great. It is what it is. It's just, but and yes, I can buy other types of what they call the Meta 5-pocket pants. Lululemon has, everyone's got them. Okay, great. But I'm wearing them right now. Like I love them. And I'm always, it's so weird. I'm on their email list. I'm on their SMS list. I go to their website to see if something new. It's so weird. I'm a fanboy now, all because they built a brand. They are retail too, so that's kind of helpful because you get more when you're out. You get to see them also and try on in person.
Just to put in there, Steve, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You resonate with that brand. That brand makes you feel something, right? In a world where you can buy stuff off Shein or Temu or any of these ones, the fast fashion has made it really accessible to get clothes. It's getting the designer label, the one that you feel is good quality. That's the thing that people are going to pay for. And it's showing in the research that people are not necessarily going to keep buying fast fashion. And look, people were changing away from fast fashion for sustainability purposes, like globally, but it's actually for their own pocket sustainability. If I buy cheap, I buy twice. So if I can buy a good pair of pants or a good t-shirt or whatever, it's going to make a stand at that. And that's what it is. So it goes back to what branding was originally used for, is to actually stand for something. So Louis Vuitton designing it, he designed his bags, he put the stamp on it to say, this is the one, this is the best designed bag. It's going to stand the test of time. And everyone then just started copying the logo. But why I'm saying that is that a brand has to stand for something. And that's what we build in Oaks. We start to build a brand around the customers that you've acquired.
Right. Okay, it's perfectly clear now. I totally get it. What about a case study? I actually went to your website, and you have quite a few actually. I think one in particular, there was this Hydrinity, and I don't know if you can walk me through it, but some of the numbers that I see here are like 194% increase in campaign conversion value, and you look at the email reach, 32% of attributed revenue came out of email. Like what did their situation kind of look like before Oaks came on board, and then what did you actually build that gave them these set of performance numbers?
Absolutely. Very excited to tell you about this. Well, when we started with them, they were sending out campaign emails like any kind of startup brand. They were starting to push things forward from an acquisition standpoint. And these guys are a skincare brand, right? They want to, they're amazing skincare. If you haven't used it,
I'm going there right now as we speak.
they very high in hyaluronic acid and things like that. And it's a really, really good brand. Now, what I would say, that's the basis, is obviously there's a good product market fit. People really care about the brand, and the ones that do buy, they stick around. But what we figured was people who, like, when they were sending email campaigns, it's kind of a similar story what we see with other brands that come to us. They were sending emails because it looked like the thing they needed to do, right? But what we did is we started to understand who's buying what and what journey are they going on. So we used a tool called Octane.ai, and what we did is we plugged that into their lead capture on their site. We did a similar thing on the lead capture on their socials. And what it is basically an AI-based quiz that will allow you to route your way through it and give us the information based on what you're actually interested in. Are you having fatigued skin? Are you feeling like, is your skin starting to wrinkle? Have you got scars on your skin? All this kind of stuff, that information feeds into what we're doing, and we start to build out cohorts based on that in particular. That then allows us to actually be able to start building out content that's very specific to those people. So when people say, you look on Twitter and you see all these other people saying, send more emails. Absolutely, but to the right people and with the right content. So this is exactly what we saw here. You talked earlier on about kind of a jump between 8 and 40 cents, of a cost per recipient. That was because we're being super segmented. So we worked out, for example, one of their products, it was a kind of a retinol kind of based product, but what we figured was how long it would take for someone to start recycling. So initially when they bought, we said, okay, here's your stuff. This is how you use it. And we started to build it out. But then after that, when we started again we want them to replenish, we started to send them content of like, this is what you should start to see on your skin. This is how it starts to look and starts to feel. Because one of the things you'll see in any kind of skincare or anything like that, the ones you start to see working is it starts to froth up, or is how it starts to feel. You like some people will say, oh, that doesn't work because it doesn't suzz up enough or something like that. That's something that I definitely would say that, I wouldn't start to kind of go down the road of faking it. But I definitely think that on these ones, when you put this on your skin, you start to feel a cooling sensation, for example. We start to tell people about that feeling that they're getting, and then it starts to become a real thing. They go, oh, I can't miss this. So then as we get to that part, we have a retention, but then what we do, and it's not just stopping out 2, what we start to work out is, when does it become a habitual purchase? When does it start to become a thing that you need more than brushing your teeth? And that's something that we started to work out and go, okay, you know what? We want to get people to buy 4 times. And once they buy kind of 4 to 5 times, they'll buy for the rest of the time, and leave them alone. You don't need to talk to them after that. So that's another thing then, is where you start to think about it from a kind of a customer lifecycle standpoint. They don't need emails telling them about how good this is. They buy this on an ongoing basis, and stats have proved it, that they continue to buy it over and over again once they hit 4 times. So our job is to get them to buy it 4 times. So we start talking them through the journey of what they should feel, how they should look, how they can use this, or when they should be using it more, and all that kind of thing. So it's relevancy to the time that this person is at, and then also looking at cross-sell opportunities at that point as well. So that resin goes with the hyacinth or something like that. There's multiple different other things that it can go with. And that's something that we've seen work very, very well for not just Hydrinity, but other skincare brands that we work with as well.
As part of the retention strategy that I hear a lot is kind of like, how do we increase the average order value? And I think you just we're talking about like the post-purchase upsells or cross-sells and different things that can happen on page. I know that's a little bit more under the Webtopia kind of like org versus the email side of it, but I think there's still some interesting things that can happen from within email segmentation to think about. Hey, you have this product A, and maybe there's an opportunity through email, through an education component, a brand play, to saying that, hey, it complements now whatever you bought. Maybe the brushes, you don't have the brushes. Oh, you should have the brushes, and here's why, and a link to a YouTube video. And I think it's all part of this brand play, but I think it's almost like the AOV of the initial transaction or transactions. And then there's the LTV, the lifetime value of the customer. How do you think about those two things, about the initial transaction and trying to maximize that revenue, the average or the basket size. And there's still a conversion question we can get into a little bit later, but then there's the LTV side of the business too, right? Of or by customers. So
Yeah, I think the main thing to kind of say is, look, you can't have LTV without having a customer. You have to get the customer first, right? And that's the
fair
main
enough.
thing, right? So
Yeah.
we talk in Webtopia a lot about having the right type of customer. So when you're purchasing, one of our brands that had worked with us for years actually were like, hey, I want to massively ramp up new customers. So what we're going to do is we're going to sell $25 products. We'll go into the, say, their pants, right? We're going to sell $25 pants. Customers went through the roof. Great. But those people didn't come back. They kept coming. We kept being like, our releases keep getting smaller and smaller while our list keeps getting bigger. What's going on? Turns out what we saw was that these people will come in, they buy the product, love the product, but then we're trying to sell it at the launch at $60. So it's like, hang on, that doesn't work out, right? Because these people are coming in for price, not for the quality of the product, which is what we've now changed the last 2 years. And what we've actually started to do is change the price of the product. So now what we do is the introductory product in Webtopia has gone from kind of $25 to $50. And all of a sudden, these launches are starting to get better because people are coming in for reasons like the pants fit well, they got great pockets, they last well in the rain, all this kind of stuff. So when it comes to kind of acquisition, it's acquiring the customers in the right type of way. But then also is well, when you start to look at when people bought for certain reasons, we start to send them emails based on that as well. So we use post-purchase survey to understand that and bring all of that stuff into a central data point. You can use Klaviyo Analytics, or you can use anything like that. We sometimes use BigQuery and keep it in the same place as like Segment or something like that. There's a couple of different places you can keep it, but keeping that rich data about your customer is the most important thing that you can do to start scaling your brand. So you can do it and you can set it up and have it like something that will flow into a certain place. You can use that data on a large scale. So big data is really going to help you in that point. Just in terms of kind of building that life cycle, depending on what kind of product you sell, right? There was a golf brand here called Druids here in the UK and Ireland. One of the things they figured out that they needed to do, their customer acquisition cost wasn't working for them because they were losing a lot of money on the first customer. So they started to make ambassador packs. What they did was, in that ambassador pack, is they brought it down to the value that it was just about break even. And then they started pushing that like really, really hard because they were getting the right type of customer wanted to spend enough money. But then there were people who were then like, right, we can acquire them. We can start selling them t-shirts kind of for their golf trips, or you can start selling them kind of shoes that are going to work really well in the rain, but for a good price. And that was when they made their margin there as well. So it's one of the things I would say is the same with social and with email. There has to be a good business strategy before you start having an implementation strategy. Because so many people look at it the other way around and go, we need to send emails about this, tell everyone about that. What is it? And how is that cohesive across your whole business before you start going and start sending out SMSs and emails and everything else like that? That's the execution part. Have the strategy right, and your execution becomes so easy.
Yeah. It's interesting too about the community side. I'm just thinking out loud here, but like I think a lot of like at least progressive brands are using kind of community more as like a retention layer. And I think it's really underutilized by a lot of brands right now. When you think about, I'm kind of a case in point where, I'm on the SMS list and the email list for Viore, and I'm going to their website directly. I'm not clicking any of their ads and stuff. So I'm maybe I'm not in their community, but I kind of am. I think community engaged customers, I think they consistently kind of outperform non-community customers, like at least from a retention metric. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think there's things like generally we've talked about repeat purchase rate and frequency and LTV and all that kind of stuff. But like, what's your thought around about community and in these life cycle systems?
Yeah, love that question. It's great. And you know what? I'll bring it back to Facebook groups have been fantastic for us. One of the things we started to, obviously we built it an awful lot with some of the brands that we're working with, where they started with a Facebook community and started to post a lot of stuff in there. You want to make it feel very VIP. As humans, we're herd animals. We want to be part of something, right? We want to label ourselves as this or that, whatever it may be. We want to make sure that we're part of something. BuzzFeed was huge at that. What type of iron are you? You know what I mean? Like, people were looking up that kind of stuff. So one of the things that I would say is that build that community, and then we'll start to build. If you have the right core group of people to start, that will start to build. And that's where you can start to test certain products, allow them to vote on products that are coming out, allow them to get first dibs on whatever you're getting. So I think that or whatever you're launching. I think that one of the things to really think about though is how you make sure you're setting up that community there, but also having some owned channels as well. So having your list and having that content in your owned channels is really, really important, because if you have it set up in Meta or wherever you're going to have your community, that's going to be like, if they change it, they change the rules, all of a sudden it's all gone. So you want to make sure you own it as much as you possibly can. But at the same time, it's a fantastic tool. I talked about Meta there. You've got Discord, you've got Slack, you've got, depending on what your brand is. But another one that's actually really starting to come up now is TikTok Lives. We're starting to see an awful lot more community built around TikTok Lives. If you have a very clear, consistent strategy on your TikTok Lives of when they're going on, how long they're going on for, what you're talking about, that will start to become really, really important part of building that community. There's a company here in Ireland. They're a salvage company, and what they do is they sell secondhand gates and urns and everything, all outside stuff. But what they do is every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. they go live on TikTok, and they go live for 2 hours, and they do a yard walk. They walk around. But if you look at it, I know I'm a sucker for it, but if you look at it, it's the same people turning up every Saturday morning. They're commenting, they're chatting, they're having a laugh, they're having fun. But they're the people that are going to come and buy. They're the ones that are logging in. They're not just having a laugh about that. They bid on the products and they go and sell those things. They're live. So that's one thing, one example. But there's several products that we're seeing people sell jewelry, see people selling clothes. Again, it's a community that they're building. And what they're trying to do is they use TikTok shops in that. But then what they're also doing is they're saying, right, when we send that out, we're going to get their email. We're going to start actually building that community as well in our email list as well. So email's still king. Email still works, but I think building that out there. WhatsApp groups are big in Europe, less so in America, but it's starting to build. But I think it's another one is like separate communities that you can build around your brand. But again, it comes back to the messaging. If you just start promoting crap in there, they're going to leave. They're not interested. You need to build that organic. It goes back to organic building.
Yeah. What's interesting about the whole TikTok live thing, because and I've written about this in the past, but because I guess it originally started in China, and it's just incredibly large going on in China right now. And there's the billions of dollars that are being rent, and I see these rooms full of people with their ring lights, flogging products. And it's so interesting. But I think doing it the right way with TikTok Live, I think it kind of bridges community and retention. But then also there's this live commerce part of it too, and the email list building, obviously. But there's enough tools and things out there now that can connect to all of these things. So it sounds like that a lot of Shopify brands, they really aren't treating it as a retention channel. And I think maybe they should, because it's a way of getting out there and building this community, and building the retention, and having live commerce.
What I would say is that it's how you can treat it, how you can simply do it. If you have a list, if you have a group of people and you want to give back as opposed to just selling, talk about it in your email. At the bottom of your email, you've got a sales SSL. At the bottom, you say, we're going live at 9 p.m. tomorrow night, or at 8 p.m. or whatever. Work out whatever time. Use the tool in Klaviyo to work out what time is your best end time. And actually put that in there and say, right, this is when people are less busy. Put that in there, get people on your live, and start talking to them. Start talking to your customers. This is the perfect opportunity to get in and start talking to your customers. If you don't have a retail environment and you want to be able to start talking to them, do that. And it's what I would say is start with passing the content back, giving good information, having people want to turn up, not to be sold to, but to be talked to. We were all locked up together in COVID, where everyone couldn't go out, you couldn't leave. Everyone moved online, and it was okay to talk to people online. So this is where it's now, when you're younger, don't talk to strangers online. It's becoming a thing. People are starting to talk to strangers again. And it's a wonderful thing. There's such beautiful flavor of people out there, and that's how you can get and build your brand. If you've got the real OGs, the people who are there since the start, imagine those people on a live talking to you about different things or commenting, and you're just responding back and forward. That's such an organic and a good feeling. So when you do that 5, 6, 7 times, you can be like, hey guys, actually, while I'm here, I've got this t-shirt we're actually launching. Do you guys like this? Give us a heart if you like this. And then you get instant feedback. You don't have to sell it to them. Just be like, do you like this or not? And then you get that instant feedback, but then they feel like they're part of the community. So when you do launch it, the thing sells out because they've all said, yes, I love it. So it's a great retention because people are there and you're building that community. You got that group. I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a video on YouTube by a guy called Kevin Locke. He used to be a trends manager on YouTube. And one of the things he talks about is why things go viral. And one of the three tenets, there's other parts in it as well, tastemakers, which are now influencers, but one of them was called communities of participation. And this is the thing that we can create in public. You can do that on TikTok, where you can start to build that out and start to build communities in public around your brand. And that's where you start to go viral. That's where things start to take off. So that's one of the things I think is, it doesn't need to be unexpected, because that's one of the other tenets. But one of the things is the community that you're building in public that people can see. And that's something that we work with in Webtopia. And I think that that's something that I think was a massive part of retention that like other agencies just don't talk about. They just talk about, let's get your emails out, let's get them sent, let's get the next email out. And we talk about people like they're humans. We talk to people when we're planning out content. It's like talking to a human, we talk about, and I'm sure Ben mentioned this, but some of our brands even talk about the customer as her. Who is she? And we look at her and who she is. And then we've got a whole group of friends who are imaginary friends, but they're there and they're buying.
So how does AI kind of fit into a lot of this? I always like to at least have the one question, because it seems to be like it's clearly on lots of people's radar, and some people have this, analysis paralysis. They're not using anything because they're just overwhelmed with it, or they can't justify the ROI for the cost of the tool. And there's people are dabbling on different things. So I'm just curious. I mean, I think there's lots of things going on right now in the world, but from your perspective, from a retention owned kind of audience kind of thing, does AI help with segmentation? Does it help with the execution, the data crunching? I don't even know how well. I mean, I look at it from my perspective, it's more like content production and understanding where I'm in organic search and citations in these large language models. And so I need to write more content around topics that I believe people are searching for. I don't know what happens in email.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a good question. And, we've alluded to it already, and you may not even remember, but we talked about AI in the inbox. So Google has obviously its AI summaries, but it also then prioritizes between the inbox and the promotions tab as well. So AI actually works in that way that you don't even know about it. So it's actually helping from that standpoint. And also then, I'm sure many people have downloaded Claude. The first thing they go in and they go, get rid of all my subscriptions that I don't open. So that's another massive thing that's coming along. It's really affecting email as a large base, but how you can use it in positive, you can use it in a very strategic way. So as I said, we can use it to start to build out kind of, core email structures. Very, very simple. So kind of, make sure you're working with it to build out the core value prop for your product at the start of the email. So when you've built your email, right, and you've got all the content there, and you've got the images and it looks beautiful, and you want to start putting in all text and things like that, or even text at the very start to allow the AI tool to be able to analyze your email. Use AI to build that for AI. So that's something that we started to see is actually the back end work that would have taken a lot longer or had taken a lot more thinking. If you've taught AI to actually learn who your customer is and actually start to build that out, you can talk to it and ask it what the information you want to put in there. So it is content synthesis, absolutely, but it's something that very designated for email that would be slightly different. Another really cool tool that we use is a tool called Customers AI, and they've got kind of two parts. And one part, and this is not a plug, they're not paying me for it, but one part actually works really, really well from a segmentation standpoint. And so what you can do is you bring the tool in, and what it does is it sits in your segments, right? It builds some segments of your customers who you have suppressed based on their behavior, based on whatever they're doing. You've automatically suppressed them. Say if they've gone through your sunset flow. But what it does is it sees those people and they've come to your site. They might have added to basket and everything else. And it's gone, hang on a second, they shouldn't be suppressed. We're going to bring them back and actually put them into your segments that you're sending to, and you can start sending it out. And that's something that we've seen work really, really well. We've got 10 to 15% uplifts in our sales on some of those segments, and they've been really, really good. And a second thing that it does then is, when people come to your site and say they sign up to your email list or whatever, they're brand new and they've never been to your site before, but they might have signed up to another list. One of the things it does is it actually allows us to send flows to those people. And we're seeing some nice incremental uplifts on those emails because it again identifies these people from other places, and that they subscribe to email marketing, and they're allowed to be emailed. So we're seeing some really good ones there. So our segmentation and personalization on that has been, again, stuff that we wouldn't have been able to do manually. It would have been sending emails, just willy nilly, really.
Ah, I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what about those merchants maybe that are listening now and then they're thinking, okay, like, this might be exactly the stage that we're at right now where they believe they need some help. They believe that maybe, if they actually were to do the research, using AI tool or not, but doing the research and figuring out that their revenue per active subscriber is not as great as it could be for a lot of reasons that we kind of talked about. What do you believe kind of the next steps are to learn about Oaks, and to see, first of all, if you can pull the right levers and help them, I guess is the key to it. So what are some of the next steps?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think, look, the first thing I would say is, like, let's start having a look at your list, right? So have a look and understand, well, what is your open rate and click-through rate? Are people actually getting in there? And what is your, getting in there and actually moving to your site? Well, what are your revenue per recipient? Are you just sending to your whole list? Are, like, loads of people seeing your stuff all the time? And, that's one of the things, one of the biggest problems we're seeing is because, they're trying to send out the whole list. There's a huge amount of revenue pumped up in that one email. And it's like, great, we had a great email and it worked. But you don't see the detrimental effects of the several other emails after. So if your agency or your person doing it is starting to see that, hit us up. We've got our email will be in the show notes, I'm sure, oaksemailstudio.com. And just fill out the form. We can jump on a call. I love talking to brand owners. I'm a founder myself. I founded 2 agencies, as I said, and I've working on building out a brand myself. And I absolutely love building brands. I've been doing it for the last 15 years. So even if it's like something where we jump on and I chat through kind of what's going on for you, and maybe we can help you, maybe not. I love giving advice. I love helping. And this is part of why we've grown so quickly, is because I love just helping people. Us building an agency and everything else is so that I can help people more. And that's why we bought Oaks. So actually reaching out is really, really important. One thing I would say is a really exciting stage that we're at right now. We're small enough as a team to care so deeply and have so many people. Like, I talk to every single person in this agency and every single day about the stuff that they're doing and how they're building. And we're structured enough to deliver consistently on an ongoing basis. So, and I would say one of the parts of the culture across the whole Webtopia group is that we're ambitious enough to build, a category around your product. That's the kind of thing that we're thinking. Be the Hoover of your product. You want to be the Band-Aid. So I think it's something that I want to make sure that your brand can grow to that size. And honest, transparent feedback is one of the things that I would say is, if you really, really crave that, not just someone who's going to go, yeah, we can do this, and then take the money. We've turned down more brands than we've taken on because we're like, you're not in a position to work with us. You need to fix these things and come back to us. And I've done that more times than I can count, because I don't, like, you're going to come back to me and be like, why haven't you fixed this? It's not working, And this is one of the things to come out of COVID, is so many people lost their jobs and were like, I'm going to set up an agency. It's like, oh, that's a terrible idea, because you have to be, you're basically a fiduciary. You're managing people's money, you're managing people's businesses. And that's the thing at the end of the day, is that understanding from our team that this is their business, that we're growing. This is their lifestyle. This is everything we're growing. So that's the most important thing, I think, to highlight. So yeah, look, I want to bring it back to, reach out to oaksemailstudio.com and we can have a chat.
It's interesting too, and I spoke to your brother, and what's quite interesting about the whole Webtopia group and stuff like that is the fact that you're small enough to care. Because I think what happens is that, like, as agencies grow, and there's some pretty powerful large agencies with hundreds, if not thousands, of employees. The problem is that they're not talking to each other, and it's interesting when you're small enough to be impactful enough. And I think that's what was Ben's comment, is like, do we want to turn in as a leader in the business? Do I want to be an HR professional, or do I want to get in the weeds and actually help people? And I think that's the feeling I'm getting from you today, is that no, I'm willing to get on calls with people and get under the hood under Klaviyo and find out what's going on. And if it's a good fit, I'll tell you. Or if it's like, no, you just need to get customers.ai or Octane AI running, then go to it. Here you go. Here's a link, and off you go. Right.
Yep, absolutely.
And I really do appreciate that.
No problem at all. But listen, I'll send across my link. You have everything you need. And yeah, call out to all the customers out there, anyone who's got a brand, let's chat. Let's work it out for you, and then we can see what happens.
Wow, this is great. Thanks, Tris, for recording today. Have yourself a great evening.
You too. Thank you.
All right, take care. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.